Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on this chilly, cold afternoon. I imagine just from looking at the poll we put up and from the news that many of us around the country are with some snow and ice. And so we really appreciate everybody joining us this afternoon. I know several people as well. I see somebody posted it's minus 13 degrees in Kansas City. I am sorry. That is very cold. Where I'm at, we got about 4 inches of ice last night, and so it's still snowing out there. And so I know many people are without power around the country, and so we appreciate you all being able to join. We are recording the webinar right now for those that were not able to make it here today or not able to join in, whether that's weather or schedule permitting. But we are going to go ahead and begin. It's 2:01. Um, and so today we're going to be talking about hitting your target, how to create a daily identification and recruitment plan, and how to set smart goals. Creating a plan and setting goals are crucial for the success of both new and experienced recruiters. Today, we will look at what a thorough daily plan for all recruiters should include to ensure they have success in the field. We will also look at some helpful strategies recruiters can use to create established goals and to maintain their success long term. To begin with, let's talk about what is a daily ID&R plan. Many states around the country are familiar with the concept of an IDR plan. Every state is required to have an IDR plan where they discuss their state goals and what they would like to accomplish for identification and recruitment. But it's also important for recruiters to have individual plans and to create daily plans. A daily ID&R plan is a written record of the locations the recruiter would want to visit, the people the recruiter would like to talk to, and the tasks a recruiter would like to accomplish during their time in the field. Daily ID&R plans for recruiters are critical because they help recruiters to organize. Sorry, just 1 second. I noticed somebody in the chat mentioned that they're having issues seeing the shared screen. Can
I can see
everybody?
it good.
You can see it.
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to follow that comment just to make sure that everybody else was able to see before continuing on. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And again, if for some reason you are having issues, the webinar is being recorded so that you will be able to see um, the screen share and recording from there as well later on if you would like. So why are ID&R plans important? Recruiters have a ton of information available to them, and we are constantly finding newer and newer information out there that is available. And so creating a daily plan can help the recruiter organize the vast amounts of information they have and make sure that they are staying aware of what is out there. It helps them to visualize what it is exactly they would like to accomplish, and as they're visualizing it, they can help prioritize what is important, so they can know the things that they must do and can't forget while out in the field. Creating daily plans helps recruiters to avoid unnecessary tasks while out in the field and to remain focused, so that they're not visiting places maybe at the wrong time or in the wrong season. It helps them to make sure that they're staying on task and accomplishing what needs to be done when it needs to be done. Creating daily plans helps recruiters to be better prepared for what they may encounter in the field so that they can know how to address any issues they may face. And it can ensure that recruiters are being thorough and diverse in their recruitment efforts so that they're making sure to visit a wide variety of locations instead of visiting the same places over and over and over again. Creating a daily recruiting plan is also important because it allows the state and the recruiter to have a written record of activities that the recruiter has done for quality control purposes. When you're going about creating your plan, it's important to keep in mind the four different types of planning that exist. The 4 different types of planning are strategic planning, which is covering why things need to happen, operational planning, which is how things need to happen, tactical planning, which is looking at what is going to happen, and then lastly, there is contingency planning, which is looking and thinking about what changes need to make if something comes up. As you can see, the 4 types of planning, strategic planning, operational planning, tactical planning, and contingency planning, all feed into one another. The why is going to tell us the how, which lets us figure out the what, and then that lets us think about what we can do instead, so we can have the what if. So to begin with, let's look at how we can focus on strategic planning for our daily ID&R plans. When creating your daily and ID&R plan, before adding an activity to your plan, you should always ask yourself, why am I doing this activity? Make sure you always know the purpose of any activity or location that you want to visit before adding it to your plan. If you're looking to visit a farm, why are you looking to visit this farm? Have there been any workers previously found at this location? Or maybe this is a new farm that you're needing to check out because nobody's ever been there before. Make sure you have that why so that you have a distinct goal for what you would like to accomplish at each location. As well, look to make sure that each location or activity that you're adding to your daily ID&R plan fits alongside your own personal long-term plan and your state's identification and recruitment plan. Many states and regions have their own goals that they would like to accomplish or measurable program outcomes that they have set aside for the identification and recruitment team. You should make sure that anything that you do or add to your ID&R plan helps your state or your region to accomplish the goals that they have set forth. As well, you should make sure that anything you add to your plan is helping to achieve and attribute to the goals that you have set for your own personal efforts. And then think back strategically and think about whether or not the activities and locations that you are adding are reflected in your year-long ID&R plan. It could be that the locations that you want to visit aren't reflected, and it would be a good time to write notes to make sure to update that plan later on. After thinking about why you're performing each activity, begin thinking about how you will do it. Before adding any activity to your daily ID&R plan, always ask yourself, how will I accomplish this task? Always be asking if this is the best way to accomplish your goal. Is there another way that you can go about to get the same information or to meet the same people? Is there another way that's more efficient? Ask if there are opportunities to try something new or to try a new creative approach. Oftentimes, recruiters will fall into the habit of visiting the same locations, talking to the same people, and trying the same strategies year after year. And while that has produced success in the past, it can often block us off to thinking about new ways that things could be done. Agriculture is constantly changing, and our cities and communities are constantly growing. And so there's more and more opportunities for us to get out there with new locations to check out and visit. So thinking about as you're adding an activity or a goal or a location to your daily ID&R plan, if there's a different way you can go about doing it. Maybe there's a new way that could be better or a new approach that you can take. As well, when you're creating your daily and ID&R plan, it's important to always keep in mind the time of day that you hope to visit each location or accomplish each activity. Time is very important because different people will be located at farms at different times of the day, as well as some farms are going to be open for different seasons throughout the year. It's be asking yourself as you're making your ID&R plan, is this the best time of day for the activity I want to do? I've seen many recruiters fall into trying to go and follow up on referrals by visiting homes during work hours during the weekday. But unfortunately, those aren't the best times to visit families because families are often at work. You want to make sure that each activity and location you have planned makes sense. You know, there's no need to go and visit a farm, for example, late at night after people have already stopped working. You want to make sure that your locations fit in with your schedule, as well as always try to keep in mind how long an activity should take. Try to plan out the time that you're going to be spending at each location. You know, if a farm has a lot of workers, try to schedule an hour or so to make sure that you're able to talk to as many workers as possible. Likewise, if you're going to go door to door on a large apartment complex, you want to make sure that you're providing yourself enough time to ensure that you're able to sufficiently talk to everybody. Don't short yourself on time to prevent yourself from being as effective and thorough as possible. Make sure you give yourself enough time at each location to accomplish the task that you have set forth. As well as you're going about creating your plan, for every activity that you add to your plan, ask yourself, what materials do you need in order to make sure that you're successful? You're going to want to make sure that you have everything that you need before leaving to go out into the field. You know, I've talked to many recruiters who have gone and driven long distances only to find out that they didn't bring enough COEs in order to sign up all the families they were meeting, or I've seen recruiters that have left their phone chargers at home so that they can no longer use their Google Maps or GPS in order to find their way around town. So you're going to want to make sure that you go through, create a checklist of everything you need based on the locations that you want to visit to ensure that you're able to be successful. One thing not mentioned on here that I would like to bring up as well is always keep in mind the weather when you're beginning and filling out your daily plan, especially on days like today. You don't want to be caught accidentally in a snowstorm when out recruiting, or you don't want to be caught during the summer in a strong thunderstorm that could potentially be dangerous. And so you're going to want to take a look at the weather and check to see what the weather is like as well, because that's going to affect the people and location that you can visit. If you're looking to visit a farm that does a lot of work outside during the summer months, that's very seasonal, but there's a lot of rain going on, you're going to want to check to make sure that the weather fits in the location that you're going to, so that people will actually be there and be able to talk to you. There's no use in driving long distances or spending a lot of time trying to go visit a location if the weather does not permit the ideal conditions for you to visit that location. And so don't just pay attention to the time and the materials you need to bring, but also look up to see what kind of weather is happening in the location that you want to visit so that you can be fully prepared. Now, before adding an activity to your daily plan, always ask yourself, what am I going to do? So you want to make sure that you're including diverse activities in your daily plan. Unless, of course, you have a goal that's aimed specifically at a very narrow target. It's important to have a diverse list of activities, just because the more different types of locations that you're visiting out there while you're out in the field, the more chances you are of stumbling across somebody that might qualify. We want to make sure that we're casting a wide as net as possible. It's also very helpful to include diverse activities because, as I mentioned, certain activities, certain types of locations are much more valuable and accessible at different times during the day. And so we want to be able to have those diverse activities and locations so that we can ensure we're making the best use of our times. You can go out and visit farms in the morning, then go out and visit stores or laundromats in the afternoon before people get home, and then visit homes of families in the evening in order to speak to people after they get off work. You're going to want to make sure as you're making your list that you have enough activities on your list to fill out an entire day. One of the worst things that can happen when you're a recruiter is to go out into the field only to find out after 2 or 3 hours that you've already accomplished all that you want to do Now you've driven 2 hours to get to a location and you didn't plan enough. So you're going to want to make sure you have enough to fill out an entire day. If I'm going to go visit a location for 8 hours, I want to make sure I have anywhere from 12 to 15 different locations that I want to visit during that day so that I know I have enough to fill out my entire workday. You're going to want to go through as you're adding each location or activity. Who do you think you need to talk to? Who are you looking to talk to? And who are you targeting? Are there specific groups? This can be as general as you need it to be, or it can be as specific as you need it to be. Maybe you heard that there was a lead that there was specific, um, that there were new workers that recently arrived at a farm. And so go ahead and add who it is that you're wanting to talk to at each location so that you can remember throughout the day. Many times we as recruiters, we get a lot of information coming in. We get out into the field, we're talking to people, we're getting more information. And if we're not making sure that we're organized and we have our strategy and our plan written down, it can be easy to forget. There's been plenty of times where recruiters have told me about how they went out into the field only to forget after speaking to a location the question they wanted to ask. Maybe there's something you heard that you wanted to follow up with on a farmer, but if you don't have it written down to remind yourself, it's very easy to forget. So make sure you have written down for each location, what it is that you want to accomplish. Who do you need to talk to? Who are you targeting? What questions do you want to ask? And then be as specific as possible when listing the activities and locations that you would like to accomplish on your plan. Instead of just writing, today, my plan is to go and visit dairies in this city. Write down the specific dairies and their addresses that you want to visit. Write down the contact information of the people that you're wanting to talk to make sure that you can reach them. Then lastly, after you have your lastly is going to come the contingency planning. And so before adding an activity to your daily plan, ask yourself, what if something needs to change? I think every recruiter can tell you that not everything goes as perfectly planned while we're out in the field. Oftentimes, recruiters are asked to think on the fly. They're asked to come up with something new, follow a new lead, or try to figure out how to accomplish something when it didn't go as we wanted. And so many times, due to weather, due to all kinds of factors, we have to change our plans out in the field. Maybe we go to a location to find a farm is closed. And so we were going to visit the farm. Now we have to find something else to do. Many times we go try to visit families only to find the families aren't home at the time that they either said they would be home or that we had planned to visit. And so it's always important to have those contingency backup plans so you can know what to do in case something comes up. Your plans are going to change throughout the day, so you're going to want to make sure that you have enough backup activities that you can do. I mentioned earlier that for an 8-hour day, try to have at least 15 locations that you're going to want to check up on visit. I always recommend to have at least 6 different backup locations that you can replace with any other location on your plan just in case something changes. And go through and create a list, maybe quarterly or every 3 to 4 months, of what are some of these things that you really would like to accomplish if you had time, and have that list with you. And you can use that as your contingency, as your backup plan. Think about if there are any places that you've always wanted to visit, but you just haven't been able to go there. Maybe there's a whole new city close by to you that you think might have some students, but you've always spent all your time focusing on these other locations because they've been so fruitful and providing so many students. And so add those kind of locations to your backup plan for things that you can go and visit just in case something changes. All daily plans are going to need to start with a goal. Setting goals helps to give recruiters targets to aim for that can help the recruiters to organize their thoughts. As we mentioned, there's an overwhelming amount of information and possibilities available to recruiters. And so without setting goals and creating those plans, it's easy for recruiters to get lost in the information available to them. So you're going to want to create daily goals, and you're going to want to create long-term goals. Currently, during this presentation, we're focusing primarily on those daily plan and daily goals. But later on in the year, IDRC, we're going to be giving a presentation, a training that's all about yearly planning and how recruiters can set yearly and long-term goals for themselves. So be on the lookout for that. One of the things that we do recommend for goals is that they follow the SMART model, SMART. For those that are not familiar with the SMART model is to help ensure that your goals that you're setting for yourselves are effective, able to be accomplished, and are actually something that you can be measured. The guidelines for the SMART goals are as follows. When setting a SMART goal, you're going to want to make sure it is something specific. So you're going to want to make sure that your goal is direct, detailed, and meaningful. Again, instead of just mentioning and saying, instead of just mentioning and saying that you're going to go visit dairies during the day, mention and say, I want to go visit these 5 specific dairies. When you're setting your goals, try to be as specific as possible, because that's going to help to make sure that they are measured and that you can reach and accomplish your goals. The M in SMART stands for measurable. Your goal needs to be quantifiable and something that you can track your progress or your success. Oftentimes we create goals that are very abstract without thinking about how we're going to measure them. And so from the very start, before setting goals, you're going to want to make sure that there is something that is for sure concrete and quantifiable that you can track. You know, for recruiters, OME has set out that we are not allowed, to set goals for number of COEs or number of students enrolled. But one of the things that recruiters can set goals for are the number of interviews that we conduct. And so maybe try to conduct, 100 interviews per month in order to see if students are eligible. And oftentimes, the more interviews you're able to conduct, the more COEs you're able to obtain. And so you can find data points out there available to recruiters that you can track in order to help you set your goals. You're going to want to make sure that your goal is obtainable. Your goal needs to be realistic, and you have the tools and the resources able to obtain it. We cannot go out and set maybe a goal that I want to go and visit all the farms in the state in a month, but you can go out and set a goal saying, I want to make sure I visit 10 tomato farms over the next 2 weeks. That is an obtainable, realistic goal that is specific and can be measured. You're going to want to make sure as you're creating your goals that you have access to what you need to reach the goal, or you have a plan to get those resources and materials. So for example, you can set, if you're setting a short-term goal that you want to make sure that you interview all of the workers or 50 workers at a local chicken plant, make sure that you have access and permission from that chicken plant in order to speak to the workers before setting the goal. You're going to want to make sure you have what you need before creating the goal so that you can accomplish it. Next, you're going to want to make sure that the goal is relevant. Just as we mentioned before, you're going to want to make sure that any goal that you create aligns not just with your long-term plan, but your state and your region's long-term identification and recruitment plans. If you need to, you can follow up with your supervisor, have your supervisor look over your plans, have your supervisor look over the goals that you've set for yourself in order to see how they align with your state identification and recruitment plan. You can also always go over and reread your own state's or region's identification and recruitment plan to see your own measurable program outcomes that the state is looking to accomplish to make sure that your goals line up with the larger goals of your state. And lastly, for the T in SMART, you're going to want to make sure that your goals are time-based. And so you're going to want to make sure that you have set a deadline for yourself of when you would like to accomplish your goal. Obviously, for daily plans, most of the time, these daily goals are going to be goals that you're trying to accomplish by the end of the day. But you want to make sure if it's not a goal that's accomplished by the end of the day, that you have a set deadline. So by a certain date or a certain time frame, don't leave that goal open-ended. You want to make sure that it has a date where you can stop to address your results, to look to see what has happened so that you can measure it. We have a comment in the chat that's asking about if we have a daily action plan template, daily or weekly action plan template that trainers could offer to recruiters. And we do. In fact, we're going to be looking at that here in a minute, and then we can make it postable to the IDRC website for people to have access to as well. So we will be looking at that here in a second. So some examples of what SMART goals do and do not look like. A goal that is not SMART, as I mentioned, is saying, I will visit all the dairies in the county. Another goal that's not SMART is saying that I will enroll more students. That is a very abstract goal that's not specific and is not measurable. Just saying I will enroll more students. It also doesn't have a time deadline set. And so when would you enroll more students by? And then the last one, I will speak to all farm workers in the county, is not SMART, because that's it's questionable whether or not that is attainable and realistic. And again, you have not set a deadline for yourself. Oftentimes I think it's good to be ambitious, but when you're setting your goals, you want to make sure that you're providing, giving enough grace to yourself to make sure that it is something that you can accomplish. I've seen many recruiters who struggle with measuring success for themselves. And when we talk about long-term planning at a future webinar, we're going to talk about how recruiters should measure success for themselves. But oftentimes, I think we as recruiters always think that we should be finding more students than we are, or achieving more than we are. And that allows us to kind of get down and beat ourselves up. It can be very difficult sometimes to take care of yourself as a recruiter, because we always want to be doing more and more and more. And so when we're creating our goals, we have to make sure that we're creating those goals and giving ourselves grace to be able to accomplish our goals instead of being unrealistic. And setting these goals, making sure they're SMART, will allow us to set those measuring points so we can see how effective we are, because it's not all just about enrolling new students. It's about getting out there, visiting the community, visiting locations, and gathering information. So what do SMART goals look like? A good SMART goal would be to say, I will visit 14 dairies this month. Instead of saying I will visit all the dairies this month, you're allowing yourself to have a clear-cut time frame in which you would like to accomplish it. It's measurable by having a clear number that you would like to accomplish, and it's definitely relevant and attainable. Another SMART goal, instead of saying I will enroll more students, you can say I will increase the number of eligibility interviews conducted this month by 10%. And so and you can go through and use your data, your notes, to track how many eligibility interviews you conduct each month. And so you can take that information, when you're writing your notes in the field, after visiting a location, write down how many people you talked to, how many people did you interview to see if they were eligible for MEP. And then after you have those base numbers after a couple of months, you can set a goal to say that you're going to try to increase the number of eligibility interviews conducted. And so you can take and continue tracking that information. And at the end of the month, you can compare to the previous month and see, hey, how did I do this month compared to last month? And, it's important to set and create these goals because it provides you with the opportunity to start collecting the data that you're going to need in order to be as effective as possible to help you really get a good look at what you're doing. And long term, as you collect this data and set these goals, you can begin creating, these yearly goals and making your monthly goals and daily goals compare to previous years, so that you could say, I will increase the number of eligibility interviews conducted by this month by 10% compared to what they were done in the previous year. And so setting these daily goals can help lead to long-term planning and long-term goals as well. Likewise, you can say, instead of saying I will speak to all farm workers in the country or in the county, say I will speak to 75% of H-2A workers in the county within 3 months of their arrival. And I think this is another really great goal to try to get for us to set that keeps us focused, because again, saying I will speak to 75% is a clear number that you can track, and giving yourself 3 months of their arrival is a time frame that you can measure it. So you look and see, when are you speaking to people compared to when they're arriving, instead of just giving yourself the open-ended time frame of saying I will speak to all farm workers in the county. So now that we have talked about the different types of planning, the different types of goals that we can create for ourselves, let's look to see what we can do to make sure we have a thorough daily plan. A thorough daily plan is going to be a thorough daily plan should have a goal set for the day, and all activities planned are going to be aimed towards achieving that goal. So you're going to want to make sure you have a clear idea of what you want to accomplish that day. You're going to want to make sure that you include a wide variety of locations, activities to visit throughout the day. And although we are working remotely, many of these places that we're talking about can still be contacted through email or by sending brochures. I know a lot of what we're talking about daily plan is we're talking about getting out in the field, but all of this still applies as many of us are working virtually. We got to keep in mind that a lot of different locations can be contacted either by phone or email. And so when creating your daily plan, whether working remotely or home, always looking to see what are the new ways you can reach out to people. So when you're looking at different wide varieties of activities to include, make sure you're looking to find where the local H-2A or worker housing sites near the location that you're trying to visit, the city that you're trying to visit. What are apartment complexes, trailer parks, or other common addresses where families regularly live? What are some farms that are currently in season that might be doing some planting that you can visit up with? As well as think about what farms might be out of season. Oftentimes it's a good idea to go and visit a farm, even if it's out of season, if you know that it's a crucial farm where a lot of workers come that you need to build that relationship up with, go and visit them out of season. A lot of times farmers are more relaxed. They have time to be able to talk to you instead of at the busy season where they're running around trying to get everything accomplished. Check in with the farmers to see how it is that they're doing, to see how the crop went last year as well as what they're planning for next year. Oftentimes those out of season farm visits can be crucial for building up those relationships so that you can have more success in the future. This winter, I had one recruiter that I spoke to in a state who decided that for Christmas and Thanksgiving, they would send out cards. And so they just made some handmade cards that were real cheap that they sent out to all the farms that they regularly visit during the peak seasons. And they even sent out some to email, and they were surprised they got a lot of responses back. The farms were very pleased to get these little messages, even farms that the recruiter didn't have a lot of relationship built up with. And so it was opened a door for this communications because the farm knows, oh, they're thinking about us, and it was just a little card saying, hey, happy holidays from the migrant education program. We hope this year is going well for you all. So something simple like that kind gesture, even out of season, can open doors, for recruiting later on. So making sure, you keep that in mind. You're going to want to make sure as you're creating a more thorough daily plan that you're visiting both seasonal work and temporary work. I think a lot of times recruiters, we get comfortable with one type of location. We either get really comfortable visiting seasonal farms, we get really comfortable visiting temporary farms, and so we can kind of become blind to the other areas that exist in our region. And so you're going to want to make sure you're doing your research to find all different types of locations so that you can add them to your plan. Also look and see where are your currently enrolled families living in the county. Our currently enrolled families should be our biggest advocates. They should be the ones that are championing for the program in the community, telling others about the wonderful services that you all are providing. And so check to see where these currently enrolled families are living so you can follow up with them to see how they're doing, to see if they have any needs, and to see if they've met or known anybody in the community that's recently arrived. And then lastly, you're going to want to check to see if there's any popular sites in the community that workers frequently visit, and always try to check up on to see about any agricultural agencies or community organizations that are out there that you can visit and follow up with. Those agencies can include such places as, agricultural extension offices, migrant health, or any other organizations that work with similar populations. I know many states that have had a lot of success recruiting, working with local religious organizations by connecting with churches or mosques where migrant students and their families regularly go. And by building up those connections, they're able to have that inroad with families. And so try looking for those kind of locations in your community that you can add to your plan in order to try to build up those relationships. You're going to want to use technology to map out the locations on your plan so you can view the best route to take before going out into the field. IDRC, we've given several presentations in the past on how to use Google Maps, and we have more mapping tools that we're going to be discussing here in the future that we're really excited to unveil. And so if you would like to see one of those previous trainings on Google Maps, you could you can visit the IDRC website to see our previous webinars to get that information, and be on the lookout for the future mapping webinars that we're going to be providing as well. But, use those technologies to look and map out your locations so you can check to see if there's going to be any road closures or hazards that could affect your day. I remember one time for me specifically, I drove an hour out of the way to try to visit this farm because I knew new workers had arrived. But because I didn't check the map ahead of time, I didn't realize that the main highway to get to the farm was closed. And so after driving an hour just to get to the farm, I showed up, the road was closed, and I had to turn right back around. And so it was, 2 hours wasted, the time driving there and driving back, all because I didn't check the map. So you're going to want to map out your locations, check to see if there's any road closures or hazards, and to make sure that you're taking the best route to take the best use of your time. And then to increase effectiveness, it's important, to know not just where to go, but how and when you'll get there. Using the map can also let you know what time you'll be visiting locations, how long it is driving between locations, especially if it's a city you've never been to before, so that you can estimate what time you'll be out visiting. And then lastly, we want to make sure always pay attention while driving, not just for safety, but also because many times a lot of recruiting happens in between locations. While we're out driving between place to place, oftentimes we can find new locations that we can note down in our notes or add potentially to our maps to try to visit later. So always be looking for new locations while out driving and about that you can come visit at a later time, or that you can even use as part of that contingency planning. There's been many times where I've had a plan go wrong, and so I've had to go back and fill it up with places that I've noticed along the drive. And so sometimes you might be going to visit a farm and you notice a house that maybe has, produce boxes outside. And so you make a note, I need to come back here. And then if a family isn't home, you can go back and check out the house with the produce boxes or come back to it another day. So it's always great to be on the lookout to see what else is out there. We have one comment in the chat that says that they provide, masks, wipes, hand sanitizers, not only to workers, but to the farms, the Farm Bureau, meat processing, and any other place they visit. And I think that's a great way of building up those relationships, as we mentioned. And, and a lot of times now we can do remote drop-offs or even send stuff in the mail. You can mail those things to farmers just to kind of let them know about what's going on. And then it's a great opportunity to let them know about the migrant education program, especially in these businesses that have a lot of workers, or even small farms that have a few workers, but it's a family-run business. It's expensive to buy, PPE materials for your workers to make sure that they're being safe. And so it's a great opportunity to introduce them to the program, to either drop off some stuff for them, or now working remotely, mail some stuff to them, and include a little letter saying, hey, this is the migrant education program, include a brochure. The IDRC website, for any state that's part of the consortium that is looking to, or Jessica, would you like to talk to about this?
Sure. We still are offering all of our non-IDRC states. We do have the PPE bags for sale, just kind of the cost that it takes to get the supplies and to make those and mail those out. Those are available on the website. And then for our IDRC states, we do have a kind of pilot project going on right now where states it has to be either like the ID&R coordinator or the state director or someone that can kind of put the proposal in. But if they're willing to try something new, and we have supplies, we have the English in Minutes books that we'll print. Those are available for free to everybody. I'll put this information in the chat box here in just a second. We're printing those, and we're also providing some of the PPE bags so that states will try new ID&R efforts. So they have to be willing to try something they haven't done in the past and kind of write a small proposal of how they want to do that. And then we can send those for free to that state. And so that is for member states. The English in Minutes books are available to all states free. You just have to print them yourself or send them electronically. And then the PPE bags, if you're a non-member state, then you can buy those at cost. So I'll put the links in the chat box.
Thanks, Jessica. So as you're creating, you want to make sure your plan is thorough. Have a supervisor review your plan. Look over it to see if they have any suggestions, ideas, or other locations you might have missed. Oftentimes, supervisors have been around or experienced, know areas, and so they are good sources of information that we might forget about. And so have the supervisors look over your plan to see what suggestions they might add, and work with your supervisor to create and maintain a task list of what you would like to accomplish and what you need to be working on so you can ensure that you're staying focused. So when creating your daily plan, choose a strategy for how you would like to organize your plan. You can organize your plan according to priority, by location type, or by the time that you would like to visit the location. I've seen recruiters that have created, their daily plans and have just kind of set it up so that, they say at 9:30 in the morning, I want to visit this location. At 11 o'clock, I want to visit this location. At 11:30, I want to visit this location. Whereas I've seen other recruiters that are setting out and creating their plans by saying, here are all the farms I want to visit. Here are all the housing sites I want to visit. So think about the strategy that you would like to use that works best for you. When I was recruiting regularly, I would organize my daily plan by location. So I would have out all the farms in one section, all the housing sites in another section that I would like to visit, and then all the community resources, so laundromats, stores, that I wanted to visit in a separate section. And then for each activity, make sure you're including all the information that you can about that location. So you're going to want to include the name of the location, the name of the contact or who you would like to talk to, if you know. So if you know the name of the head of HR at a farm, if you know the owner of the farm, maybe you know the local crew leader who's been a big help in the past, add those names to your plan, as well as the phone number of who you would like to contact, just in case you can't find them, the address, the plan time that you would like to visit, and then any other known information about the location. So that can include questions you would like to ask, important information. I know some recruiters that would go through and they would add like the names of, they had a notebook that had all their notes. And so they knew like the names of farmers' kids so that they could remember to ask them about their kids and add that location to their plan. Now, granted, if you're doing that, probably don't let farmers or anybody see your plan, but it's always good to have those notes handy with you so that you can be best prepared at each location that you're visiting. So here's an example of a plan I used when working for the state of Tennessee. This was a plan that I created for our recruiters in state to help them stay organized. And so Jessica has it, and so we can share it with everybody at the webinar as well, if that's something that you would be interested in. And we know we got a couple comments in the chat about that. And so here you can see the plan, as I mentioned, is divided by location type. So you have farm visits, community contacts that you would like to visit, as well as housing visits. There's instructions at the top so that all the recruiters that would have the plan would know exactly how to fill it out. I also, when creating it for my recruiters, like to include examples of locations that they could go to find information. And so, for example, I would include links to our local Google Maps, as well as links to local agricultural pages or blogs that they could go to find out more information that could help them shape their daily plans. Then each category is clear. There's a clear heading, and then there's detailed information for them to list under each form. Even in the farm visits, I included a checkbox to check to see, does this location have H-2A workers, so that the recruiters would always know to look up those H-2A lists to see if there are farms they can go and visit. Dividing the plan by location, creating a plan, a form for recruiters to use, dividing it by location, I also found to be very helpful because it reminded recruiters to, again, be diverse in what they're looking to accomplish. And so having these different categories that they would fill out encourage them to look for locations under each category that they could visit, instead of focusing only on farm visits or focusing only on community contacts. And so we'll be sharing this with everybody just so you have an example. And of course, you're going to need to find the organization style and plan for what works best for you and your state. So some key tips to help you improve your plan, to always make sure that your plan is better. Number one, find your strengths. Every recruiter brings new experiences to the job, new things that they've known, they've done, new contacts that they can make. And every recruiter as well has their own strengths, what they're comfortable with, where they work best with. I've known some recruiters that are amazing at talking to OSY, whereas other recruiters are fantastic at talking to families with younger kids. So every recruiter should find their strengths and plan according to your strengths. Try to maybe do 60, 70% of what you're best at, and use the other time to do maybe what you don't feel as comfortable with, so you can grow and get better. As I mentioned before, always remember to keep weather in mind when you're creating your plan, not just for safety, but again, because different people may be available at different times in the year, depending on the weather. You can never plan too much, but you can hurt yourself for planning too little. It's a key point I always told all of my recruiters that were working for me. If you have too much on your plan, that can always be carried over to another day. But finding yourself with too little to do while out in the field or during a day's work can be hurtful, because you're not using your time effectively. A lot of us recruiters suffer from paralysis when trying to decide on what exactly we need to do. And so we want to make sure that we're prioritizing and planning enough so that we never suffer from that paralysis and always know what to focus on. A general tip that I would tell recruiters is always try to have 3 or 4 different locations or activities planned, per hour. If stuff are close together, you can kind of guesstimate about 15 minutes per interview or per visit. And so try to keep that in mind when you're creating your plan. And again, always have those 5 to 6 extra activities, locations to visit, just in case your plans do change. And another great tip is to always keep your plans to review and to use later. I always try to tell recruiters to keep their plans for at least 3 to 4 years after the fact, just because plans are really helpful when new recruiters join in, so they can see what recruiters should be doing, what the expectations are. And if a recruiter is going to a new location and doesn't know where to go, you can always share with them your plan for what you've previously done in that location. Plans also can help you maybe, next year you can go back, review your plans, to either go back and follow a similar plan or to give you ideas and strategies for how to create your new daily plan. So don't just throw away those plans that you create. Keep them around because they can be used in a lot of different ways. And so now we've talked about some ideas for how to create a plan. We looked at an example, how to set goals. Now we're going to hear from one of our IDRC member states to talk about how they use planning in their own identification and recruitment efforts. And so now Nebraska is going to share with us a little bit about how they use planning with their recruiters to make sure that they're being their best.
I just promoted her to as a panelist so she can speak. You need to let us know if you can speak.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you.
Okay.
Perfect.
All right, perfect. So this is we use a individual action plan for the year. This is what the model that we follow. We do SMART goals for our yearly plan. And basically every recruiter meets with me at the beginning of September, and we work throughout the plan. We make notes. We make one goal for each area, which is the quality control, one goal for professional development, one goal for ID&R, and one goal for intrastate coordination. And then we meet, we're going to meet again mid-March to talk about how we are coming along with each individual recruiter goal. And then we tie this overall like long-term goal to our daily plan, which did we have a picture on this next slide?
We did not have a picture of it.
Okay, so and then we tie it to their daily plan. And so on their daily plan, what they do is that they record the day, and then they have like a note section, and they have it's designed so they can visualize what and prioritize planning throughout the day. Sometimes they fill out the log before the end of the day. Sometimes, unexpected changes happen, and so they just add to the plan. But recording their day helps them stay focused and helps them get data, which helps them provide awareness for their yearly plan, which is this. So it's tied together. Their daily plan, it's basically the data that they use, as well as that they use to form their yearly plan, and as well as to monitor to make sure that they are on track. Yes, so they, what else do I have there? They complete in their daily log, they complete on a monthly basis. They have it on a spreadsheet, and at the bottom of the sheet, there's different tabs for each month. So they stay organized, and they use different categorization columns. So for example, if they also, it's multi-use, so they can use it to keep track of the number of COEs that they write or the number of errors that they have. They use it to write down contacts, addresses, or if they have a special note section where they can write notes if they need to get back to that contact or do some follow-up with them. And there is a specific section in the log. Everything is in one sheet, or one spreadsheet, I should say, or different spreadsheets, different tabs on one document. And there is also a section where they can keep track of their professional development throughout the year. So everything is in one document.
Thank you so much, Ida, for sharing. That was terrific. I wanted Ida, she's from Nebraska. She's the ID&R coordinator for Nebraska, to share, just because it's a great example of how when we're talking about daily plans, we're not just talking about what's accomplishing today, but it connects to the much bigger picture of what not just your recruiter, but your whole state is trying to accomplish throughout the year. And so everything is tied together. And so that's why the daily plans are so important. And it's so important to make sure that we are setting those SMART goals, that are specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely, so that we can make sure that we are being as thorough, as effective as possible, because it's eventually going to help us achieve our state goals as well, and our long-term goals that we're trying to accomplish, which essentially, ID&R plays a big part in funding for MEP. And so everything ties together. And so I was really, when we were talking about the ways that Nebraska does it, I was really excited to see how their daily plans interacts with their yearly plan, and how they meet regularly twice with their supervisor to check up to see how they're doing. And so thank you so much for sharing. I think it really highlights how important this is and how effective it can be. We have a comment in the chat about whether or not they'd be willing to share that template, and we'll talk with Nebraska afterwards to see if they'd be willing to share it, and we can make sure that we get some kind of template available out there for everybody to use as well. So thank you all so much for joining us today. We're right under the hour mark, and I know with the weather outside, many of us are probably antsy to either get out to make sure that our cars are okay, or even to take a rest. And so we appreciate everybody joining us today to hear about the importance of daily plans, to get some tips on how to go about creating daily plans if you're a recruiter, or even if you're a supervisor, how you can help your staff create daily plans so that we can all ensure that we're being as effective and efficient as possible. If you wouldn't mind, after each webinar, we always ask all participants to fill out a quick training review form. If you've never used a QR code before, you can just open up your smartphone camera and scan the box on the screen. It's a digital code that'll take you to a link where our survey review form is, or you can look in the chat, and the training review form, the URL has been posted in the chat that you could go there. We at IDRC are always looking forward to hearing about ways that we can improve, new topics that people might want to hear about for trainings. And so go to let us know. We had a message that said, open the survey, but your state isn't in the states to choose from. There is an other box. And so if you do not see your state on the list, go and select other, and then you can type in your state and to let us know where you're from. We always like to hear from, people all over the country from different states to see where they are. So we really appreciate it, everybody. We appreciate everybody joining us here today. I would also like to take this time to just advertise and mention that we have started a new monthly newsletter this month. We're really excited about focusing on eligibility scenarios for recruiters. Every month, on the first of each month, we'll be sending out an email that contains 4 to 5 new eligibility scenarios for recruiters to use, to practice with. We know how important eligibility scenarios can be in helping us to hone our skills. And then on the 15th of the month, we send out the answers. And so we sent out just yesterday the answers for our first newsletter, so recruiters can go back and check their work. But if that's something that you're interested in, you can type your email into the chat. You can make sure you get sent that newsletter, or you can always subscribe through the IDRC website. But we thank again everybody for being here today. If you have any questions or comments, here's our contact information. You can always visit the IDRC website where the webinar will be posted later on. Everybody stay safe out there and stay warm. And thank you all so much. The subscription to the URL for subscribing to the newsletter has been posted in the chat, so you can scroll up and see it there.